What if I told you that spilling a single can of soda at age 12 led to your parents literally abandoning you, and years later, you got the perfect revenge at your brother's wedding? This Reddit story starts with what should have been a minor childhood accident, but escalates into family abandonment, foster care trauma, and the most devastating wedding revenge that destroyed multiple lives. By the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who claim to love us. If you've ever felt abandoned by your family or dreamed of the perfect revenge, hit that like button because this story will leave you absolutely speechless. Meet Alex, who at 12 years old was living what seemed like a normal middle-class life with his parents and younger brother Jake. His parents, Linda and Robert, were obsessed with appearances. Their house was spotless, their car was always pristine, and they expected their children to be perfect little accessories to their image of success. Alex had always been the problem child compared to his golden boy brother Jake. Where Jake was naturally athletic and charming, Alex was bookish and awkward. Where Jake seemed to instinctively know how to please their parents, Alex constantly struggled to meet their impossible standards. The incident that changed everything happened on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Alex had just gotten home from school and was drinking a soda in the living room while doing homework. It was something he'd done hundreds of times before. But this time, when he reached for his pencil, he accidentally knocked over the can, spilling Coca-Cola on their white carpet. What happened next would haunt Alex for the rest of his childhood and fuel a revenge plan that would take over a decade to execute. CTA, you might think this is just about spilled soda, but what Alex's parents did next was so cruel that it destroyed their family forever. Subscribe now because this abandonment story will break your heart. Alex's parents' reaction to the spilled soda was immediate and terrifying. Instead of helping him clean it up or even just being annoyed, Linda started screaming that Alex had ruined everything and that she couldn't take his carelessness anymore. Robert joined in, yelling that Alex was destructive and didn't deserve nice things. But the real shock came when Linda announced that they were done with Alex. She told him to pack a bag because they were dropping him off at his grandmother's house until he learned to appreciate what he had. Alex thought this meant a weekend timeout, maybe a week if his parents were really angry. He was wrong. After 3 days at his grandmother's house, Alex called home asking when he could come back. Linda's response was chilling. "You can't. We've decided that Jake deserves better than having a brother who destroys everything we work for. Grandma will take care of you now." Alex was 12 years old, and his parents had just abandoned him over spilled soda. But the worst part was still coming. Alex's abandonment was just the beginning of his nightmare. What his parents did next proves that some people should never have children. You won't believe how cruel they became. Alex's grandmother was 78 years old, living on Social Security, and struggling with her own health problems. She took Alex in because she had no choice, but she made it clear that caring for a 12-year-old was beyond her capabilities. Within 6 months, Alex was placed in foster care because his grandmother couldn't manage his needs. Meanwhile, Alex watched from afar as his parents completely erased him from their lives. They changed their phone number so he couldn't call. They moved to a bigger house and told neighbors they only had one son. Jake was enrolled in expensive private schools and given every opportunity Alex had been denied. The most heartbreaking discovery came when Alex found out that his parents had been telling people he had behavioral problems and that they'd been forced to place him in specialized care for his own good. They painted themselves as tragic victims of a troubled child rather than the abandoning parents they actually were. Alex spent the next 6 years bouncing between foster homes, always wondering what he'd done wrong and why spilling a drink had cost him his entire family. But during those years, Alex was also planning something that would change everything. Those foster care years shaped Alex into someone his parents never expected. Hit that notification bell because his transformation is about to lead to the most epic wedding revenge ever. During his time in foster care, Alex discovered he was actually brilliant. Without his parents constantly criticizing him and comparing him to Jake, Alex excelled in school, won academic scholarships, and eventually graduated from college with honors. He became successful in tech, started his own company, and built the life his parents had convinced him he'd never deserve. Meanwhile, Jake had become everything his parents wanted: popular, athletic, and engaged to a wealthy girl whose family owned several businesses. The wedding was planned as a massive social event, designed to showcase the family's success and status. Alex heard about the wedding through mutual relatives who had stayed in contact with him. For years, he'd wondered if his parents ever thought about him or regretted their decision. When he saw the wedding announcement in the local newspaper, describing the close-knit family and their 2 successful sons, Alex realized his parents were still lying about his existence. That's when Alex decided it was time for his family to face the truth about what they'd done. And Alex's plan for revenge was more devastating than anyone could have imagined. Alex's wedding revenge plan was so perfectly calculated that it didn't just embarrass his family, it exposed their lies to everyone who mattered. Subscribe if you want to see how abandonment trauma turned into the most satisfying justice ever. Alex's revenge plan was masterful in its simplicity. He decided to attend Jake's wedding as a surprise guest, but not just as himself, as the successful businessman he'd become despite his parents' abandonment. Alex hired a professional photographer to document his arrival and interactions with family members. Alex also did something brilliant. He contacted several of the wedding guests in advance, including extended family members, family friends, and even some of Jake's new in-laws. He told them his story, how he was the missing brother who had been abandoned at 12, and how his parents had been lying about his existence for over a decade. On the wedding day, Alex arrived in an expensive suit, driving a luxury car, and carrying a wedding gift that would change everything: a photo album containing documentation of his entire life since the abandonment, including foster care records, graduation photos, and evidence of his business success. When Alex walked into the wedding reception, the room went silent. His parents' faces went white as they realized their biggest secret was about to be exposed in front of everyone who mattered to them. The moment Alex's parents saw him at the wedding was just the beginning of their nightmare. Comment below, what would you have said in that moment? Alex didn't cause a scene or make a dramatic speech. Instead, he simply walked up to his parents' table and said, "Hi Mom, hi Dad. It's been 13 years since you abandoned me for spilling soda. I thought I should finally meet my new sister-in-law and show everyone the son you pretended didn't exist." The wedding guests who Alex had contacted in advance started asking loud questions. "Wait, Linda, I thought you said you only had one son? Robert, didn't you tell us Alex had died? How do you abandon a 12-year-old over spilled soda?" Jake's new in-laws were horrified. The bride's father, a prominent businessman, was disgusted to learn that his daughter had married into a family that abandoned children. Several wedding guests started leaving, unwilling to celebrate with people capable of such cruelty. Alex then presented his wedding gift, the photo album documenting his life since the abandonment. As guests passed it around, they saw pictures of Alex in foster homes, graduating high school alone, working his way through college, and building his successful business without any family support. The wedding reception became an impromptu intervention about child abandonment, with multiple guests confronting Alex's parents about their lies and cruelty. The way the wedding guests turned against Alex's parents was absolutely beautiful. Hit that like button if you think they deserved every moment of that public humiliation. The wedding reception ended early as guests continued to leave in disgust. Jake's new wife was mortified to learn the truth about her husband's family, and her parents threatened to cut all business ties with Alex's father unless he made amends for his treatment of Alex. Alex's parents tried to claim that Alex had been a difficult child who chose to leave, but the documentation in Alex's photo album proved they had abandoned him. Multiple family members who had been told Alex was dead or institutionalized confronted Linda and Robert about their lies. The most satisfying moment came when Jake pulled Alex aside and apologized, saying he had always wondered what happened to his brother but had been told Alex didn't want contact with the family. Jake revealed that he had tried to find Alex multiple times but had been blocked by their parents. Alex's revenge was complete, but it also led to something unexpected: a relationship with Jake, who had been as much a victim of their parents' manipulation as Alex had been. The brothers reconnected and built a relationship independent of their toxic parents. Sometimes the best revenge is simply showing people who you became despite their attempts to destroy you. If this story of overcoming abandonment inspired you, make sure you're subscribed for more justice stories. This story teaches us something powerful about resilience and the long-term consequences of parental cruelty. Alex's parents thought they could erase him from their lives and rewrite history, but trauma has a way of demanding acknowledgement. What makes Alex's revenge so perfect is that he didn't become vindictive or cruel like his parents. Instead, he became successful, documented his journey, and simply told the truth. His mere presence at the wedding was enough to expose years of lies and manipulation. The saddest part isn't that Alex was abandoned, it's that his parents chose their image over their child's well-being. They prioritized having a perfect family story over actually being decent human beings. Their lies eventually caught up with them because truth always finds a way to surface. Alex learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about people who choose to love and support you. His foster families, mentors, and eventually his reconciled relationship with Jake became his real family. Sometimes the people who hurt us most end up showing us exactly who we don't want to become. Final CTA. If this story about overcoming childhood abandonment and finding justice through success inspired you, I need you to demolish that like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories of people who turned their trauma into triumph, and share this with anyone who's survived family abandonment or abuse. Comment below and tell me, have you ever had to prove your worth to people who wrote you off? Let's celebrate survivors who refused to let cruel families define their futures. Your resilient story could inspire someone else who's struggling. See you in the next incredible survival story.